Hey, this is George back with the New Hunter's Guide, the YouTube channel and podcast helping new hunters get started and helping active hunters learn new things. Today we're going to make one of the most outstanding and amazing wild game recipes you have ever conceived of or imagined. That's right, we're making wild turkey marsala with morel mushrooms. Now this is a dish it's outstanding. It is an American dish because wild turkeys are native to the Americas and morel mushrooms are a American pastime. So we're gonna combine both of these into an amazing set of flavors. You don't wanna miss it. All right, so the first thing we wanna do here is we wanna cut and prep our morel mushrooms. That way they've got time to soak and then to dry before they're needed. Now what I'm gonna do here is just wherever the stems look a little bit torn and dirty, I'm just gonna trim the very end of the stem off. There's not a whole lot to this step. If you're unfamiliar with morels, they tend to grow in the springtime. Now we're just having them here. And what we're gonna do is just cut them in half and then wash them thoroughly inside and outside and then lay them on a plate to dry. Now, these guys grow in the springtime. They are mysterious. They are described best, I think, as a sweet but nutty mushroom. One of the best tasting mushrooms I have ever seen or heard of. Now, of course, you could replace this with baby bellas, your typical white mushrooms, or anything like that is gonna work. Now, we've got them cut up. Let's go ahead and wash them. The washing process here is really straightforward. We're gonna wash the inside and the outside thoroughly, and then we're gonna just put them on a paper plate that has some napkins on it. All right, so we got our mushrooms all put on the plate here. I've gone through and just cut them into smaller pieces. Now we'll set these aside to dry. And now we pull out our turkey breast. Now this is a fresh wild turkey. I took this turkey hunting, let's see, 2 days ago. It was Saturday. I'm shooting this video on a Monday. We just have a beautiful piece of meat here. This breast weighs a little under 2 pounds. It's actually maybe a little bit more meat even than we need today. But what we're gonna do is get this thing trimmed up. So we're gonna, basically I'm gonna try to cut it in quarters, but this side's a lot thicker. So I'm gonna cut that side a little smaller because those are gonna be bigger pieces. So we'll get this cut, and then what we wanna do is basically try to cut it in half as best we can. Now if this were part frozen, it would actually make this job a little bit easier, but this one's fresh. Just took it out of the fridge. So we're gonna try to have it here for tenderizing. Okay, so that was relatively close, not perfect, but doesn't need to be perfect. All right, our next step here is to tenderize. So we've got our mallet, we've got our plastic wrap paper. So we'll just get this arrayed in such a way that it's easy to cover them all with one sheet. And now all we need is our mallet. We're gonna do both sides. Coarse side first on each side, then the fine side on each side. And let's get after it with some heavy duty tenderizing music. Now we've got it tenderized and it's ready for the next step. Now people tend to ask, they say, George, do you really need to tenderize it? You know, do you have to do that? Well, no, you don't have to do anything. You could go to McDonald's for dinner if you want to, or you could complain about wild turkey being too tough. But this is the way that works best, not just for this meat, but for this recipe. Now, you could also use for this recipe, you could use chicken, you could use venison even, you can use veal, but I think this recipe is perfectly tuned for the wild turkey. All right, so for the next step, we're gonna dredge this in a flour mixture. So I'm gonna pour in here, a little over a cup of flour. And then I have a seasoning and spice blend. Now this is paprika, cayenne, garlic, onion, salt, pepper, and some other things. I'll go ahead and put all the ingredient amounts for this and everything else in the description of the video. Also, I'll link in the description of the video just a quick link to the video of me telling the story of this particular turkey hunt. Now, I'm sure this is going to air well after turkey season in most places, but you can see how this particular bird got to where it is today and the great morning that was. So we're just going to mix this around a little bit, not a whole lot to it. And before I dredge it, I'm going to cut some of these breasts down just a little bit here. They're a little large, some of these pieces. So this is super simple, guys. You're going to take a piece, put it in the flour, one side, two sides, done. Shake it a little bit. You don't want too much flour. And doesn't matter if it's real gnarly, it's going to absorb that flour just fine. We don't do any egg wash. We're not batter frying this or anything like that. Just that little dusting is all you need. All right, our next step here is to pour some olive oil into a hot skillet, maybe a tablespoon or two. Then what we're going to do is take a nice pat of butter. Woo! You can tell that's warm enough. And then we're going to put in our turkey cutlets. Now this is going to be fantastic. Oh man, this turkey is so tender after being tenderized. I can just tell you right now, this dish is going to be excellent. And we're going to let these cook for about 3 minutes per side and then flip them. All right, we're at about the 3-minute mark. Let's take a look. Oh, look at that golden brown, starting to caramelize. That is perfect. Now we're not trying to cook these all the way through at this point, because they're going to cook them more later. There'll be a second cooking. So, in fact, it's better if we don't overcook them at this point in the process. Oh yeah, look at that color. Getting some great color here. It's been about 3 minutes. Just look at that little bit of caramelization. Some nice browning going on. Next, we're going to add another tablespoon of butter to this equation. And then we're going to put in our mushrooms. Now, I did cut these up a little bit more, and because I'm making this dish for 2 people to hopefully last for 2 days, because I got 2 pounds of meat, and those are all the morel mushrooms I could come across. I also got some baby bellas here. So this is actually going to be a hybrid mushroom dish, which is okay. You can do that. It's completely allowed. We'll get the flavor of those morel mushrooms, and then we'll get just the texture and the staying power and the fortitude of those baby bellas. This is going to be phenomenal, guys. So what we're going to do here is we're going to cook this for about 5 minutes until the mushrooms give up their liquid and start to caramelize and brown, and then we'll move on to the next step. What we're going to do next is just add a little bit of seasoning here, just a little bit of salt on the mushrooms, some freshly ground sea salt, some freshly ground black pepper, just to give them a little bit of, just to infuse those mushrooms. The next step here, we're going to add about a cup of Marsala wine. And just give that a little stir, deglaze the bottom of the pan, and oh man, the aroma of that wine. You talk about spectacular. What we're going to do is, Marsala is a little bit of a sweet wine, but it has a real distinct aroma and flavor, which just makes this dish. You know, people say, well, what could I use instead of Marsala? There is no direct substitute. You know, you could maybe do a cream of sherry, but you're not going to get the same dish. This wine just makes it. And what we're doing here is we're letting it cook down. All the alcohol is going to cook out of that wine, but the flavor is going to concentrate and just infuse those mushrooms with that sweet, amazing Marsala flavor. So we're gonna let this cook down here. So it cooks to about half. That might take 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. All right, this beautiful mixture here has cooked down for just a couple minutes. This pan outside especially is really hot. So our next step is we're gonna add about a cup of chicken broth. And then we're gonna let this heat up and then let this come down and cook down by about 50% as well. We've let this cook for a couple minutes here to just thicken up and come down a little bit, and now's the moment of truth. We are gonna add our turkey back in and just sort of try to get contact with the bottom of the pan in between the mushrooms as best we can here. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, you know, what if too much evaporates? And it looks like that's happening here. You know, what if we need more liquid in there? Oh, guys, you couldn't ask for something better than that to happen. You need more liquid? That's perfect. We just add a little bit more Marsala wine right before the end. So our goal here is to let this just heat up in the sauce for a couple minutes per side. The chicken should already, or the turkey should already be mostly cooked. And this is just gonna polish it off and let those flavors sort of infuse into it and just help it heat all the way through. Now I can tell you already, it looks like we are gonna probably need a little bit more Marsala, which is a great problem to have. So we're just gonna add a bit more around the pan. Our last step here is we're gonna add a few tablespoons of butter. So we get that butter all melted in there, and we're gonna just stir it around. We're gonna turn the heat down here. Just, you can see how thick it's getting and rich and just beautiful and delicious. And now we're just gonna give them one last flip here, so every piece of every bit can just soak and baste in that buttery goodness. Now the moment of truth. A nice piece there. Get some of our Morel. Get some of our baby bellas. Oh my goodness. Guys, this looks absolutely spectacular. Probably is too hot to eat, but I just cannot wait any longer. So let's dish up a full bite and see how this goes. All right, guys, here we go. Oh my goodness. Oh wow. That flavor of the Marsala, and that little bit of sweetness. Oh, and the seasonings coming through there. Oh man, the flavor of those Morel mushrooms. I wish I had 100 pounds of those to throw into this thing. Oh wow, that's good. Guys, there's not an ounce, not a microspeck of gaminess to this at all. The texture is so good. It's not any more chewy than your regular turkey is gonna be. Oh man, the flavor. It tastes so clean. Guys, it tastes so clean. There's no gamey nothing. It tastes like your store-bought turkey, but with more flavor, just a little bit more character. Oh man, guys, this is amazing. I think I'm gonna have to go in for another bite here. I made some jasmine rice to go with this. I'm gonna soak up that sauce a little bit. It's a little bit of parsley on top. Chives would go great on this. I forgot them at the store when I was there. But guys, this is just an excellent meal. I mean, just take a look at this, how this came out, the texture, the colors, the flavor, just outstanding, guys. Oh man, I cannot say enough about how great this is. You guys have to try this. And again, you can experiment with different meats. You can use different mushrooms. This technique is gonna work just great for a whole host of things. But wow, for a wild turkey, this is outstanding. Guys, please hit that thumbs up button, hit like on this video, really appreciate it. Glad you guys could watch. I've got other recipe videos that we've done, more that are coming. And of course, if you want to learn how to hunt these birds or anything else that walks in the woods, we've got videos about all of that. So appreciate you guys. God bless you. Until next time, go get them in the woods.